All right, so jumping right in, we're tackling Plato's Republic this time around.
Mm.
You sent in some really fascinating stuff
Okay, yeah.
about his whole ideal society thing.
It's a big one.
And we're in book 4 now, getting into the nitty-gritty. And honestly, it's kind of shocking how relevant some of these ideas still feel.
It's true. I mean, thousands of years ago, and we're still wrestling with these same quotes about what makes a just society. What are the components? Like, how do you even begin to build a system like that?
Right. And one of the things that really jumped out at me from this section was this idea that in Plato's perfect state, everyone has a specific role to play. Like, we're all cogs in this well-oiled machine,
Yeah.
each with our own specialized purpose. Everything humming along perfectly.
It's a very particular kind of harmony he's going for.
Yeah, and that's what I'm curious about. Where's the line between utopia and something a little more, well, controlled? Because if everyone has to fulfill this predetermined role, does that even leave room for individual freedom?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And Plato actually addresses this head-on with this great analogy of a statue. He says, imagine you're creating this beautiful sculpture, everything perfectly balanced and proportioned. Would you suddenly give it purple eyes just because it's your favorite color?
If it clashes with the rest of the piece, probably not.
Exactly. You wouldn't sacrifice the harmony of the whole for this one little detail, even if you personally like it. And in Plato's ideal state, it's the guardians who are entrusted with maintaining that harmony.
Okay, so they're like the ultimate art critics,
Yeah.
making sure no one's rocking the boat too much.
More like guardians of the state itself, as the name suggests. They're not meant to rule for their own personal gain or happiness or anything like that. They're there to ensure the well-being of the whole society. And what really worried Plato was how things like wealth and poverty could throw everything off balance.
Yeah, that's definitely a timeless concern. Like, power corrupting even the best intentions.
Absolutely. He saw extreme wealth and poverty as these corrupting influences that could seep into everything from the arts to how decisions are made.
Which, I mean, let's be real, we're still grappling with that today in a big way. But I don't want to get too off track here because we've got a lot to unpack with these 4 virtues Plato lays out. Wisdom, courage, temperance, and of course the big kahuna, justice. He's essentially giving us the building blocks for a just life, both on an individual and societal level.
And it's not just a dry lecture either. The way Socrates goes about uncovering these virtues is fascinating. He uses this analogy of hunting for justice.
I love that. Like, we're right there with them on this philosophical expedition.
Exactly. It's engaging, it's thought-provoking, it pulls you right in.
Okay, so let's start our own little hunt here, breaking these virtues down one by one. First up, wisdom seems straightforward enough, but I have a feeling Plato had something pretty specific in mind.
Oh, absolutely. He did. For Plato, wisdom wasn't just about being smart or knowledgeable. It ran much deeper than that. He actually links it to this idea of good counsel, which he believed stemmed from a deep holistic understanding of the state itself.
So it's not just knowing a bunch of facts, it's about seeing the bigger picture, right? How everything fits together.
Exactly. It's about understanding the interconnectedness of things, the way different parts of society work together. Ideally, of course. That's where that good counsel comes in.
Yeah.
You can't advise properly if you don't grasp the whole picture.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's what I don't quite get. If this kind of wisdom is so crucial, why are the guardians, the ones who are supposed to embody it, such a small group in Plato's ideal state? Seems a little counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It does, right. But that's actually key to Plato's whole point. It's almost as if by making them this small elite group, their role becomes even more significant. Their knowledge, their ability to provide good counsel, it all becomes that much more potent.
So it's like they're this concentrated source of wisdom guiding the entire state.
Fascinating. All right, let's move on to courage. Now, I feel like we need to do a little mental recalibration here because I'm pretty sure Plato's definition of courage isn't quite what we usually think of when we hear that word.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's much more nuanced than just, say, facing down a physical threat or something like that. For Plato, courage was all about preservation of the opinion.
Okay, gotta be honest, preservation of the opinion sounds a little cryptic to me. Can you unpack that a bit?
Think of it this way. It's about holding on to really internalizing what you believe to be truly fearsome, truly worthy of respect or caution. And this goes back to education.
So how we're taught shapes what we perceive as courageous. In a way, yes, Plato uses this great example of dyers preparing wool to hold dye properly. That careful preparation is like the education we receive. It should be shaping our beliefs, our understanding of what is and isn't something to be feared. So our courage, in a sense, is unshakable because it's rooted in this solid foundation.
So it's not just about facing your fears, it's about making sure those fears are based on a solid understanding of the world, right?
Exactly. It's about having the right framework for understanding risk and danger, one that's rooted in knowledge and careful consideration, not just instinct or impulse.
Wow, okay. That is a completely different way of thinking about courage than what I'm used to. It's not just about bravery in the moment. It's about having this deep-seated, educated conviction. All right, I'm liking this so far. But what about temperance? This one always trips me up a little. It feels, I don't know, kind of restrictive. Like it's all about denying yourself things.
I think that's a common misconception about temperance. It's not about deprivation, really.
Okay, good.
Good.
Because that's always been my hang up with this one. It just doesn't sound very fun.
Right. But Plato actually saw it as a kind of self-mastery, like this beautiful harmony between different parts of ourselves.
Different parts. So it's not just about like resisting that extra slice of cake.
Well, it can be about that, but it's bigger than just any one desire. It's about how all those desires, all those different parts of our inner selves interact within society as a whole.
Okay, I need an example. How does my inner self, like, connect to societal harmony?
Think of it this way. Plato actually points out this contradiction in the phrase master of himself. Like, if you're the master of yourself, who are you mastering?
Whoa. My mind just went full-on philosophical pretzel.
Exactly. And that's the point. We've all got this inner struggle going on. But temperance, that's what helps us align our individual desires with the needs of the whole. It ensures that the wisdom of the group, the well-being of the whole society, isn't constantly being drowned out by the cravings of the individual.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between indulging every whim and becoming like a completely self-denying hermit.
You got it. It's all about balance. And this idea of balance, of finding that equilibrium within ourselves, it's actually what leads us to the grand finale of Plato's virtue lineup, justice.
The moment we've all been waiting for. I feel like Plato's been building up to this, laying all the groundwork with these other virtues, and justice is the grand finale.
It's true. It's not even really a separate virtue, but rather the culmination of all the others working in perfect harmony. And for Plato, justice is when each part of the soul and the state is doing its own work, fulfilling its purpose without overstepping.
So it's like everyone and everything being in its rightful place, doing what it's meant to do.
Precisely. And think about how often Plato circles back to this idea throughout the Republic. He emphasizes it again and again, like he's saying, this is it. This is the key to a just and harmonious existence.
It's like that friend who keeps repeating the punchline because it's just that good.
Right. And here's the thing. It's not about some grand sweeping gesture or a utopian fantasy. It's about the everyday actions, the individual choices that contribute to the bigger picture.
Small acts, big impact.
Exactly. And that impact isn't just external, it's internal too. Plato connects this idea of justice in society to the very structure of our souls, which he breaks down into three parts: the rational, the spirited, and, my personal favorite, the appetitive.
Okay, gotta admit, appetitive isn't exactly a word I throw around every day.
Mhm.
Sounds a little like something you'd find on a fancy menu.
Right. But basically, it's the part of our soul that's all about those desires, those primal urges for pleasure and immediate gratification.
So the part of me that wants that extra slice of cake, even though I know I shouldn't, I think I'm very well acquainted with my appetitive side.
We all are. And Plato uses this really vivid analogy to explain how these three parts interact. He says the rational part is like the charioteer, trying to control these two powerful horses.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So one horse, the spirited horse, represents our ambition, our courage, even our anger. It's that drive to achieve, to overcome challenges, to prove ourselves.
Okay, I think I'm getting a sense of where this is going.
Mhm.
And the other horse, the appetitive one, that's the one pulling us toward instant gratification.
Exactly. It's constantly seeking pleasure, satisfaction, sometimes at the expense of what's actually best for us. And this is where that story you highlighted comes in. Leontius and the corpses. Remember how he was both drawn to and repulsed by the sight of them?
Yeah, it was this weird mix of fascination and horror.
Exactly. And Plato would say that's the spirited part, the part that values courage and honor, battling with the appetitive part, the part that's drawn to, well, something a little more gruesome in this case.
So even though both of these horses, these parts of our soul, can drive us to action, they're not always aligned.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that Plato saw the spirited part, while it might seem like another flavor of desire, as being more closely aligned with reason. It wants what's best for us in the long run, even if it means a bit of discomfort in the moment.
So the spirited part is all about delayed gratification, while the appetitive part is just like, give me that cake now. I can definitely relate to that internal struggle.
Right, and this is where education comes in. Remember how Plato stresses the importance of things like music and gymnastics for the guardians?
To be honest, that part always threw me off a bit. Like, shouldn't they be focused on philosophy and lawmaking, not playing music and working out?
Well, Plato believed that education wasn't just about filling our heads with knowledge. It was about shaping our souls, refining those desires and impulses. He saw music as this harmonizing force, something that could bring balance and order to the soul. And gymnastics, well, that wasn't just about physical strength. It was about strengthening the spirit, preparing us to keep those unruly appetites in check.
So it's like we're teaming those wild horses, right?
Right.
Training them to work together so the charioteer, our rational mind, can actually, steer the chariot.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding that internal harmony, that balance where reason can guide our ambitions and keep those desires from just running wild. And that's what Plato believed was the foundation for a just individual, which, he saw as essential for a just society.
Makes sense. Because if everyone's inner chariot is in chaos, society is probably going to be a mess too.
Exactly. It's like this ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
That internal state, that balance or lack thereof, it extends outward. And Plato was convinced that a well-ordered society played a huge role in cultivating well-ordered individuals.
Which, okay, that makes me think about the other side of that coin. What about societies that are, grappling with injustice? Does that then say something about the individuals within those societies? Like, is it a two-way street?
That's the question that's been kind of nagging at me this whole time. It's almost like Plato is giving us this roadmap to a just life, individually and collectively. But then he's also hinting at what happens when we neglect those internal foundations. What happens when those chariots run wild, so to speak.
Okay, I am so here for this analogy. Keep going.
Well, we just said that if a well-ordered society helps to shape well-ordered individuals, couldn't you also say that a society struggling with injustice might, in a way, be a reflection of some internal discord within its citizens?
Well, okay, so it's not just about pointing fingers at systems and structures.
Yeah.
We should also be looking inward, right? Examining our own individual pursuit of these virtues, our own, like you said, internal horses.
Exactly. Is this idea that we're not just passive participants in the systems around us. We have a responsibility to cultivate our own sense of justice, our own inner harmony, which then contributes to a more just world. It's this really radical idea, even now.
It's like a call to action disguised as ancient philosophy. And honestly, what a powerful thought to end on. It's like Plato's just dropped this bomb of wisdom, and now it's up to us to, figure out what to do with it.
And what I love is he doesn't give us easy answers. He gives us these frameworks, these tools for thinking, and then kind of steps back and says, all right, go grapple with it.
Which is exactly what we're hoping you'll do. We've only just scratched the surface of the Republic here, and trust me, there's so much more to uncover. So tell us, what resonated with you? What are your thoughts on this whole idea of individual justice impacting societal justice? Head over to our social media and share your insights. And hey, if you're feeling really ambitious, grab a copy of Republic and dive in yourself. Until next time, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.